Hi. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how powerful the summary section is of the Presstimator when generating estimates. This is the portion where after you've entered all of the specs of a job, that's what the job entails as dictated by the customer, and match those up with all the costs you have set up in your shop settings as your cost and standards for each aspect throughout your shop. Once you've done that and you've matched those up, then you go to the Summary tab to determine what it costs for you to produce the job, and then that's also where you're going to determine what your markup and profits are. And remember, creating estimates is the most critical portion of running your business. If your estimates are not accurate, then clearly your billing is not accurate, which means what are you charging the customer? And if you're not billing properly and covering your own costs, then clearly your profit margin is not accurate. So what the Presstimator does is ensures that you're estimating and billing accurately so you are running a successful business. So in this case, let me just bring up a sample quote here and just kind of show you the summary tabs and show you how powerful they are in determining what your costs are. So in this case, I just have a sample quote. I've got 32,500 copies of a 56-page tab. The web width is 30 inch on our 22 3/4 inch cutoff press. And in this case, I'm actually going to be running this job as two sections. So let's just say that we've entered all the specs of the job, and then we've just loaded all of our defaults, and then we're going to go to the Summary tab. And let me just click on the Summary tab here, and you'll see that there's inner tabs here. But the first one we start off with is the Auditor. And what the Auditor does is it goes through all these other main tabs, and it makes sure that you've covered all of your costs for everything that it would take for you to produce this job in your plant. So make sure you have costs for paper and ink and prepress. And what it'll also do is make sure that you're covering to cover all your costs, but also to see if there's any $0 figures or any missing startup or make ready, anything that would cost you money when producing this job that you may have overlooked. You simply just, the first thing you do is just in the Auditor tab is just run the Auditor. And in this tab, in this quote, I've set up a couple of errors so I can show you how this actually works. In this case, we have an error in the paper tab, and what we've said is that the basis weight entered in the paper specs, 35 pound, does not match the basis weight of the selected paper, which means the customers asked for a particular basis weight of paper, and yet the incorrect basis weight was selected when creating this job. To handle this, all I have to do is simply jump to the tab. This will jump to the paper tab, and where I can fix the error. And in this case, they asked for a 35 pound high bright of white 80 bright for this job, but when we created the job, we did it on 30 pound newsprint. So you could see that we would be losing quite a bit of money by producing this job on the wrong paper stock. You can see down here that the paper cost that we have calculated for this job is $3,671. But let me say, let's just use our defaults, or we can select the proper paper, or let's just say just use our defaults, and it will go through and it will apply those changes. And you can see now that it applied the correct basis weight, the paper stock that we have in shop settings, our 35 pound white high bright, you can now see that the overall cost went up to over $5,300. This was a cost difference of nearly $1,600. So just on this job alone, by quoting on the wrong paper stock, we would have undersold this product by over $1,600 to cover our paper costs. So that's an example of how it can capture errors. Let's jump back to the summary again. I can either click here or in the toolbar jump to the Auditor button, and I'm just going to run the Auditor again. And little by little, you will just be eliminating any oversights that you want to eliminate from the quote. There may be things that you want to leave that you intentionally did not charge for, but the Presstimator will capture those and you can ignore them, but we're definitely going to call them to your attention. In this case, we have another error. In the Press tab, we have no make-ready times entered for Section 1. Again, I can jump to the tab. In this case, it's going to jump to the Press tab, and you can see that I don't have any make-ready time. Currently, our make-ready costs are $225. So again, I can either key these values in at a rate of $225 an hour, Or I can just say use my defaults, which I'll do, and I'll just use my default make ready values and apply. And you can see our cost just went up to $675, a difference of $450 that we again would have overlooked by not running the auditor. In this case, we had an hour of make ready time. And again, I can jump back to the auditor again and then continue to run this till I've successfully eliminated all the errors that I've found. Once this is done, now you know that you've captured all the costs through every aspect of the job. And now it's going to move to the next inner tab, which is Markup. And in Markup, we're going to show you exactly what the job cost you to produce. This is not without any margin, without any profit built in. This is what it cost you to produce the job. Now there's several options with marking up and determining what the profit is, but this is the most important value to make sure that you cover your costs when producing this job. So I have a couple options here. I have all these different line items down below between materials and labor and miscellaneous, and you can see how all the costs are brought in. And I can mark up each line item separately. I can actually key in a markup value here that I want to mark up, say like 20% for paper, and it would automatically recalculate. Or what I can do is to make things faster, I can create markup schemes in shop settings. In this case, I can just select one of those schemes. And you can select a scheme based on the size of a job or for a particular customer, however you'd like to do it. And if I just select a different scheme and apply that automatically trickled down and applied that markup scheme. My cost is exactly the same, but now I can see how my markup and my profit is different. And I can simply just select any different markup scheme and apply it and see how that changes the values here. These green flags that you see here also means that you can override a value, so you can back into any one of these costs as well. So let's say on this particular job that you want to achieve 20% profit. That means you need to mark everything up 25%, and then this is what your markup dollars are going to be. This is what you're going to sell the job for. Or I can back in another way and just kind of say on this particular job I want to make $3,000. What does that mean as far as profit, and what do I have to mark this up for? Or you can just use a determined markup scheme that you have in shop settings already, and just say use my markup scheme, and it will apply that and tell you what and show you what it calculates it out to be. You also have the option of, let's say you have a contract with a particular customer that you're going to sell a particular job. Let's say they do a job once a month, and regardless of the number of pages or the quantity, that you're going to sell that to them at a flat rate every month. You know, in some months you'll do better than other months. You can actually import that information in here and pull it in and use a fixed selling price, and then based on that we know what your cost is, and you have the fixed selling price, and that way we'll also determine what your profit is in your markup. So you can see here how powerful it is to determine exactly what it cost you and what you are going to sell this job for, and determine what your profits are. Again, if you're not estimating properly, then you clearly don't have any grasp of what your profit margins are going to be. As I move across the different inner tabs within Summary, Overview just takes that the information entered on the prior screen, makes a smaller list here, everything from pre-press through delivery in a smaller compacted list to kind of show you exactly what it cost you to produce a job, again, and what your markup is. And at the bottom we're going to show you some totals as, you know, per page and per thousand, to give you a better handle on how you're pricing out and marking up your jobs. The additional thousands tab will automatically do all your additional thousands calculations for you based on just running the press for another 1,000 copies. It takes out any make ready and startup factors, tells you exactly what it cost you to produce the extra 1,000 copies using the markup scheme that we entered previously for each one of the categories. And at the bottom of the screen we're going to show you again all those line items, but again we're going to show you what the selling job price is for the job, what the base job per 1,000 is, and then what the additional thousands per price is. And we'll also do some additional quantities for you. So let's say the customer asked for the base job was 32,500 copies, but they wanted in increments of 2,500. You can enter that information here and we'll automatically calculate your multiple quantities for you. The Analysis tab will take all of that information from the prior tabs of Markup and show you exactly a breakdown of the job in terms of materials and labor and miscellaneous. So you can move any item, any line item from a job into a different category just by marking it. In this case, we moved paper from being materials to a labor cost, or you can move it to miscellaneous or remove it entirely from the cost study. And clearly for paper we want to make sure that it's in materials. And at the bottom of this screen we will show you a breakdown exactly of how much of this job is made up of materials, how much of it is manufacturing, and how much of it is based on paper. This is a very important number for you to determine how well you're marking up your jobs based on the percentage of paper costs. And then lastly we move over to Invoice. And invoicing is a case where you can actually print out invoices here. You can do customizable invoices and print them directly from the Presstimator. If you've got your own accounting software, you can export this information to your accounting software if you want to handle it there instead of in the Presstimator. But as one last chance for you to see what the calculated selling price is, make any adjustments and any tax consequences to give you a total invoice amount, which can be sent either printed from here or sent directly to your accounting software. The last tab is actually actuals, but I'm going to save that for a different video. That's where we compare what your estimated values are versus your actual values when the product is actually produced, which again, it's one thing to estimate a job and then what is actually happening on the production room floor. Again, the whole purpose of this is for the Presstimator to tell you what the job is costing you and giving accurate estimates and accurate invoices to send to your customers so you know exactly how profitable your business is. And remember, in this job, the auditor captured over $2,000 in missed charges for you to produce this job. The error was a simple one of just quoting on 30-pound newsprint instead of 35-pound high-bright, which cost us over $1,600, and I missed make-ready time for one section of the press, which would have cost us another over $400. So combined, we captured over $2,000 in missed charges just for this single quote. So just for a single 32,000 copy 56-page tab, we captured over $2,000 worth of errors that we would have otherwise made that the Presstimator captured for you. So you can see how very quickly the Presstimator could pay for itself just by capturing some oversights that could possibly be made in another system.